An hour and a half before the April 6th Lansing City Council meetings, word got out that the UK-based data center company Deep Green was pulling their request for the purchase and rezone of the city-owned parking lot on Kalamazoo and Cedar. This was celebrated by many commenters, but some cautioned we've still got a lot of work to do. One failed data center project does not a sustainable city make. Welcome to What Lansing Council, a podcast transforming Monday night's Lansing City Council meetings into an enthralling recap. I'm your host, Jill Dombrowski, and today my very special guest is Rebecca-Lynn Ferguson. Hello!
Hello!
Rebecca is a Lansing-based creative and community advocate who works with language learners in the Lansing Public Schools and serves on several boards, including RIF, Reading is Fundamental, Ingham Health Plan, and the Rio Town Commercial Association. She's a proud Rio Town homeowner and non-native Lansing transplant who's passionate about neighborhood vitality, civic engagement, and the local energy that keeps Lansing weird in a good way. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
And thank you for coming to the council meeting and being my buddy yesterday.
No, that was awesome. I have watched the videos a few times, but I'd never actually been in person. So I figured it was a good time to do it, and I picked quite a night.
Oh, yes. So, it was a whole vibe.
It was a whole vibe.
And so many treats we got.
Yes.
Cookies.
I got cookies and a cupcake. I was well fed at last night's city council meeting.
It was a real party. Tell us about what do you think about Lansing? How would you describe it in your own words?
I think the prompt was 3 words.
Yes.
And I love a good rule. I love a good rubric. But I think the thing that captures it well is big little city. And I know that's not an original thought, but it does kind of emulate what Lansing is.
What else do you like about Lansing?
I really love the people. That, I think, is what I fell in love with and what made me want to stay. So, like so many people, I found myself in Lansing, not necessarily of my own choosing. My family actually moved to the middle of Michigan when I was 10 years old. And I moved to Lansing for college. I went to LCC. In fact, this used to be the bookstore in which I bought all of my college books.
Oh, college books.
Gibson's. And from there just kind of stayed on and desperately wanted to leave for many, many years, did not want to stay, but then began to find community and began to find folks. I think Lansing is one of those places that you have to choose. Like, you have to decide that this is where you want to be. Mm-hmm. And the people who have made that decision are some of the best people. And that's really what I fell in love with, was the folks who had kind of put down roots and decided, like, this is what I want. This is what I'm choosing.
Yeah.
And
deliberate intention.
Yes. There was an intentionality. And it wasn't, so, like, it's very easy to fall in love with a city like Chicago or, Grand Rapids. There's so much on offer. It's really shiny. There's like, there is so much that you can get out of those cities.
Easily
with very little work. And I think that places like here, you have to do a little bit more digging. You have to kind of, you have to be connected, but then it feels more authentic, because you can also live in places like Chicago and be completely invisible and never really find your people and never find your community and go to wonderful restaurants every night of the week, but never really have the people that make it feel like home. And that's what I love about Lansing.
Yeah, well said. Well, what would you like to see changed in Lansing?
I think one of the things that Lansing falls prey to is apathy. A lot of folks just give up or feel like they don't have the opportunity to make change. They feel powerless. We're tired. And so I would love to, and I think that that's actually one of the reasons why I love what you're working on, this project, is because this is an avenue to sharing how people can get involved in meaningful ways that can allow for change. Like, these are kind of activation points that folks, like just regular citizens, have a means to engage meaningfully and make change happen. And that is what I'd like to see more of in Lansing. I want to see more people feel like their votes matter, feel like their voice matters, and feel engaged.
Yeah. You want to be heard.
Yeah.
Be seen, be heard.
Yes.
Council. Great. So should we get into the meeting?
Absolutely.
All right. We went to the April 6th, 2026 Lansing City Council meeting. We start with the Committee of the Whole. This was at 5 o'clock it started. We have council people Ryan Cost, representing the 1st Ward, Dianera Navarez-Martinez of the 2nd Ward, Adam Hussein of the 3rd Ward, Peter Spatafor, Council President of the 4th Ward. At-large members are Tamara Carter, Jeremy Garza, Clara Martinez, and Council Vice President Trini Pelivanoglu. Also, we have Greg Venker, the city attorney, Sherry Boak, the recording secretary. We had the mayor for a hot minute, and Mark Lawrence, the mayor's chief of staff. So, President Spatafor announces the data center vote has been pulled. Deep Green has withdrawn their application for zoning and purchase of the city property. The mayor is there also to reiterate this. And Spatafor continues to make this announcement as more people trickle in throughout the meetings. And later in the meeting, Council Vice President Pelivanoglu asked the mayor to confirm that it's not like tabled or anything, it's canceled. And the mayor is like, it's withdrawn. We withdrawn it. They've withdrawn it. Withdrawn. I don't know any synonyms for withdrawn. So then we're into budget presentations. Here we go. I missed the first standalone Committee of the Whole meeting last Monday of the budget. So this is the second real budget presentation. I'll do a recap of that next time once I get around to watching it. Sorry. Spring break, woo! So this meeting we had information, technology, IT, assessing, the city attorney, and the police. And what struck me kind of as a theme for all these departments was increased purchasing and reliance on software to do their jobs. They were all talking about the software that they're purchasing. Yeah. And it's like, well, we need those data centers after all.
Right?
Yeah.
And software is getting more and more expensive too. Mm-hmm. So I know that,
Are you seeing that at the school district as well?
Yeah, and it's a highly competitive field, so it's interesting because it's getting expensive, but they are it's like anybody is making a program these days, and so you need these programs. You've got these heavy hitters, you've got Microsoft, you've got Adobe, but there are some up and coming softwares, and of course, when you get into city government, you're dealing with some very niche things, right?
Sure.
And I think the police talked about having some of the data tracking software that they use and reporting software that takes the body cam footage and collates that somehow.
Right.
It's really interesting, the technology side of these things. But yes, that's definitely where funding is going to have to shift away from, paper clips and pens and, our classic office supply budgets are now going to have to be more and more technology and software and hardware, I think, too. They're going to have to be buying devices.
Yeah.
So, we saw that reflected for sure last night.
Yeah, and I'll just go through these a little bit. So for IT, we have Jason Hogan explaining how they have contracted out a redesign of the city website to make it more compliant with ADA. That's the American Disabilities Act standards for accessible design. They're getting retirees updated in the payroll and accounting software. They're purchasing software for a new ticketing system in IT. He cautions that hardware and cloud computing costs are on the rise. But he did renegotiate their cellular phone contracts, and that is a savings of $150,000 a year. So,
nice.
Good job on that, Hogan. Garza asks about having more long-term contracts with vendors like Microsoft or Google, and Hogan talks about they thought about shifting to Google products away from Microsoft, but when the Lansing School District went through that change, his wife said it was a headache, so never mind on that.
It is hard to do an institutional changeover. And Hogan also mentioned last night that certain softwares are not the same. So I know from experience, Google Sheets is not the same as Excel. And what you're capable of doing in Excel and what you can generate out of Excel is not done yet in Google Sheets. It's a growing software, but I think Microsoft still kind of holds the
Gold
torch.
standard.
Yeah, for some of these softwares. And so it would be hard to move away from those, for sure.
Yeah. For assessing, we have Jennifer Seitzberger and Deputy Charles English. And Seitzberger is talking about how they're working hard to get all the city documents in the vault scanned to be paperless when they move to the new City Hall building. Also, they have purchased a software called Pivot Point, and they purchased tablets, and they can use those in the field to do assessments of buildings and property, not have to write it up all in paper and then duplicate it again in the computer. But they're still working on learning how to use those softwares. So again, it takes a lot to get up to speed on some of these new programs. Council member Cost asked her for a quick explanation of how taxes are calculated, property taxes. And I thought this was interesting because I actually didn't know this. So I might botch this explanation, but we'll give it a shot. So each year in assessing, they determine the assessed value of a property, and that's half of what that property could be sold for. And so that's one value. And then they calculate a second value, which is a cap value, and that is the prior year's property tax that was paid plus an inflation amount, like a blanket inflation amount. And then they look at those two numbers and they choose the lower of them. Mm-hmm.
That's what I understood of that. And you can see how that would help if with market fluctuations. If, for example, a couple years ago when suddenly real estate values kind of skyrocketed and you saw houses doubling in price in very short windows.
Yes.
If we had just used that first number, like what your actual value of the home could be, people would suddenly see massive tax. So
right.
That's where that other number comes in. But the inverse could be the case where suddenly if your home lost value, if your neighborhood lost value,
sure.
if they, I don't know, put up a data center.
Data center and flooding.
Yep. Hashtag
we got
Lansing.
No. We said no.
No. I think you could see there where it's kind of a safety net for homeowners or property owners. Really, it's sadly it's actually probably more property owners than homeowners, but
yes, yeah,
a broken dream.
Yeah, I think they talked about how they try to reappraise. So for calculating that first number, 20% of the housing stock each year. I think maybe I heard that, but that could be wrong. And then also the year that a property is purchased, it's uncapped. So then you get you can get a big taxable value increase on the purchasing year. Hussein asks Seisberger, I thought you were leaving. And she was like, yes, I did get another job, but I'm going to get this department through an upcoming audit. And then good luck and goodbye.
Yeah. That was what I understood of that.
Next, we had the attorney's office. Attorney Venker says, we're fully staffed. We have been focusing as the city attorney attorney department on prosecuting bad landlords to make it more expensive for them to be skirting their responsibilities. Because this is something we've heard for a long time, that it's cheaper for them to just not follow the rules. So we're trying to make it more expensive. So that's been a
Great
focus.
News.
Yeah, they said they've brought 110 compliance orders taken to court are surrounded around that last year. So that's something.
Wow.
They've also been rewriting a bunch of the city ordinances. He's happy to see council working on ordinance rewrite because that's council's job. So good job doing that.
Yay.
And they also purchased software for subscriptions to legal reference materials and for handling, quote, complicated FOIA processes. That's the Freedom of Information Act. No questions there. For the police, we have Chief Robert Backus. He's hired 25 people last year. They have a record management software change for the body camera footage that you mentioned, and also digital evidence, and they're, quote, leading the way on this. So.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Way to go, guy. Have had significant reductions in gun violence over the past year, so he gave off those statistics. And Navarez Martinez applauded him for that and said, would you say that community connections have been a big part of that? in here, I think she's talking about Michael Lynn Jr. of the Lansing Empowerment Network, the Village Lansing, and America 20 to Life. He has been hugely helpful in partnering with the police to come up with protocols of what happens, when there is gun violence and how to reduce it. So, and the chief did say, yes, like we have been working very much with them.
Yeah.
So great to see that collaboration.
Absolutely.
They're trying to move people. They're trying to move sworn officers like out of roles that civilians could do so that they can have more boots on the ground or something. They don't have like supplemental services like a narcotics unit because they don't have enough personnel for those. They're just like covering what they can.
Yeah. That was
Budgets are budgeting.
budgets. 'Tis the season.
Yes, so budget wrap up, there's like a whole bunch. Yeah, May 18th will be the end of the budget season.
Yeah,
so a few
because
more.
this is all in planning for the next fiscal year, which kicks off October 1st, correct?
That seems right. Absolutely. So. I do think it's nice. I think council uses it a little bit as an opportunity to just check in with the departments and see how things are going in general, like not just budget wise, and kind of get a feel for what's happening. So
yeah. Well, it also gives you a scope of what city government is doing.
Yes.
I think sometimes one thing will blow up and it'll be the focus of a lot of attention. And it's important to know, the city assessor's office, right?
They're still assessing.
They're still doing things. They're still there.
Yeah.
Also, I think sometimes the division of labor is important to understand of like who does what and whose responsibility it is to cover different aspects of city governance.
And nice even within the council audience, like, you see them chit-chatting with each other and who knows how often they actually get to do that. So.
Yeah.
Good chit-chatting, everyone. Okay, so I'm going to get to public comments next, but first, at the beginning of the regular meeting, so we have City Clerk Chris Swope coming in to run that, and at the beginning there, Second Ward Councilmember Dianara Navarez-Martinez, she said, I want to read the prepared statement I had about the deep green vote. And I'm going to paraphrase this. She said, today I'm voting no. We need to be deliberate about the kind of development we choose. Urban planning is my field, and it has created a lot of injustice. The fundamental planning question from this project was, do we want a 16 megawatt natural gas power plant in downtown Lansing? And for me, that's a no. And there wasn't a lot of transparency in this process. I use the internet more than most, but this is not the way to be doing things. She says, I've made a draft ordinance to prohibit data centers in the downtown. So hopefully we'll get to doing that. And this got a round of applause from the audience.
Yes.
Spatafor was like, shut up, everyone. So public comment. First of all, I'm going to say one comment was like, hey, attorneys, the FOIA process should not be so complicated. This should be an easy process. Get us the information we request. And for police, community policing practices would be a huge efficiency gain. So maybe think about that.
Yeah, I remember we used to have community policing. It was really nice knowing, like, having an officer who was like your officer, like it's relationship building.
Yes.
And it goes both ways because then the officer knows who his public is, who his neighbors are, or her neighbors. Yeah. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So for data center comments, a lot of people said thank you to everyone who asked questions, who came to the meetings to voice their opinions. It was not a waste of your Monday nights. A lot of thank yous specifically for the three planning to vote no. Those would be council members Ryan Cost, Adam Hussein, and Navarez Martinez. Others said there's been an erosion of trust with the administration and council and BWL through this whole process. BWL is a monopoly that is not well regulated. BWL wants to put a substation in Wentworth Park downtown to help with the steam to hot water conversion. Opposed to that, and they're going to take out $3 to $4 million worth of bonds to pay for this conversion, and that's going to be on the residents. This should be just the commercial customers who are going to be benefiting from that conversion, Not everybody should have to pay for this. So that was one comment. Also, BWL, the Board of Water and Light, is giving $1 million back to the city each year. Why? They should just be charging people less. You're a public utility. So there's that. Someone said, this discussion really fractured the community. Stay more involved, everyone. This issue isn't over. Like this person says, I host housing meetings. We're having community discussions on what we want the city to look like. The first Thursday of the month, the Lansing Empowerment Network at Rio Elementary. So let's keep the energy up. Mm-hmm. Let's keep working together.
Yeah.
Someone says, this crisis remains. Do not let a good crisis go to waste. This is not a win. It's a black shot. Why did they target Lansing in the first place? Because we're a poor area with weak government and not a lot of civic engagement. And we need to address these issues. Some people say we need to pass a moratorium on data centers to buy us time to pass robust regulatory frameworks to protect against more predatory projects like this. And I guess the Mayor Shore made some comments to the press being like, this is my summary, being like, hey, now everybody who was opposed to this, I'm excited to hear your proposals. Come to me with your financing and your projects. And people were like, someone was like, Mayor Shore, we don't need apartments on every corner. We need jobs for all the people. Your job is to bring some real projects we can all get on board with. Give us something not to complain about or leave this land empty until we get a new mayor and council that has a vision. Someone else said that the mayor's comments were embarrassing and childish. I do think that increasing housing will bring increased business. It's a positive feedback loop. The mayor does not see it as his job or responsibility to bring investment or proposals, but he should. Real estate conferences are happening in Grand Rapids. Send a city rep there. Go and talk up our city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, we don't exactly have the best statewide reputation. I'm not sure if conferences are the answer. I've been to a lot of bad conferences. But I think that the idea is right. Go seek out opportunities. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Others say Lansing has a sustainability plan. Let's look at it and use it. Lansing can become its best self when it is diverse and livable in the environment here in Lansing.
Yeah, that sustainability plan came up actually multiple times. I thought it was kind of interesting. At one point, somebody was like, you should read this. Addressing the council.
Yes.
But yeah, hopefully folks will read the sustainability plan. But I think, too, citizens should be reading that sustainability plan because it's a lot easier to hold feet to the fire if you actually know what the fire looks like and where the fire is.
Where the fire is.
So you can't just hold feet randomly, right? Going with that weird analogy.
We want these feet to burn, not to get mildly warmed.
Yeah, I think that it's important that we know what was made as a plan to be like, hold on, this, because somebody made the really valid point last night of like the data center actually goes against the sustainability plan that the city put forward as its sustainability plan. And so, but if nobody reads it, then no one can say, and I have not heard anybody prior to this say, hey, this is counter to what we said our plan for sustainability was for this city.
Right.
And that right away should be a big, red light to be like, oh, hold on. Either we need to, change our sustainability plan or reconsider the direction we're moving in.
Yeah. Someone else said we would have been getting $1 million annually to the city from this data center project, but I calculated a $4 million social cost that would come from the carbon emissions each year. So throwing some data out there. We should be spending more money on community centers, not data centers. Somebody held up their sign from the protest. That gives my award for best visual aid.
Yes.
Love a visual aid. Love a pattern top. Love a visual aid. Clerk Swope says they got over 100 written communications for and against this. So
that's amazing.
Thanks
that's engagement.
It is. It is, definitely. So let's take a pause and talk about best dressed.
Oh, I did have a favorite. There was a gentleman there with an amazing eagle shirt.
Yes.
And that it was just like a bald eagle with wings spread and it was in a circle.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just very epic. And he also spoke with such gravitas. So like it was a whole thing where it was just like he spoke kind of slowly and epically with this like very cool eagle shirt. And I was like, yes, my winner.
That was he was my winner as well. Great beard.
Yeah. It was just all around.
Yes. My runner-up would be Councilmember Cost, who had a black shirt with a famous lace collar, a nod to the famous lace collar worn by late Chief Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yes, and it said "I dissent" or "dissent" across the top.
He had like a cardigan over it, so you couldn't see it fully, but
yeah,
that was nice. And you were very well dressed.
I actually was just wearing my Easter dress from the day before because I'd only worn it for a few hours, and it was over the chair, the chair we all have in our rooms that serves as a wardrobe.
Yes.
So I was just like, choices.
Yeah, beautiful, like summery botanical dress.
Yeah, it had lemons on it.
With like a midnight purple cardigan and mauve tights. So
thank you.
You're looking very good.
Love colors.
Yes. So a few more public comments. People were like, the Shuffle property is next. So this, again, why are we selling this for far below market cost? This is like the next issue that we should be riled up about. A couple people mentioned the Shuffle sale, and that's like a property that's like a building on Parks property that there's like a consideration of that being sold to the operator.
Yeah.
Somebody said that Kilpatrick of Public Service is being disingenuous in the comments he's making to the press about the number of public service workers.
It sounded like somebody who maybe worked in that department was the impression I got.
Yeah.
And kind of went through and talked about like how there was a night shift and a day shift, and then they shifted people to all being on the day shift and then like made them work the night. So then it was, rather than having two shifts, you're paying one shift overtime was kind of how I understood that.
Yes. Then there was somebody who was talking about some industrial trucking operations that are happening right next to his house.
That was heartbreaking.
This person has been to like 4 meetings saying the same story, and it is 100% heartbreaking.
This gentleman was talking about how like he's in a residential home, and yet there's this industrial thing like right on his doorstep, and that shouldn't happen. Like we should not have those arrangements pop up, because somebody should be looking at a map and going, okay, wait, these are too close, or you know. So that was so sad.
Yeah. Someone was saying, hey, I'm running for school board. I want to see the school district buy up property for housing staff and students, and we need a moratorium on evictions during the school year.
I do really like his proposal to put a moratorium. I think if there's a way to, like, if you have children, like school-age children, that seems like a reasonable ask, or at least make it a little bit more difficult to evict people with school-age children. For sure, because I know the Lansing School District has an amazing, it's called the FORT program, but it is for our housing insecure students, and it's run by a pretty dynamite team of folks who move heaven and earth to try to like make sure that kids have the resources that they need once it's made apparent that they're in some kind of housing crisis. And housing insecure is used as the term because things like living in your aunt's house or living with a friend, they're not, maybe not homeless.
Sure.
But that's not the same as like having your own place.
Sure.
And I've lived, I currently live in a neighborhood that has several rental properties, and they're month-to-month rental properties. And we see like, I've seen several kids come through and be there for a month. Jeez. There 3 months. And it's like, and I know from the school district, these kids are having to be bused. And so then it's arranging busing.
Think about that.
And the bus, but the kids are on the move. And so trying to kind of pinpoint where they
should go.
Or because you can't just send a bus out to find them. It's not exactly how that works.
Can't put a tracking beacon on them either.
That's got other questionable issues. Yeah. So it's a very challenging prospect, and so I do think that he was onto something. I think that's. I'm not sure if anybody has kind of raised those kinds of questions before, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, certainly worth looking at.
Yeah. Next comment, someone was like, flooding. We know flooding happens, and we used to have flood diversion infrastructure put in some roadways. That has not happened in years. Where is it? Why isn't that happening?
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah.
But if it exists, that would be awesome.
Right. Someone was like, we need a community center in the 2nd ward. Someone was like, economic development should be separate from planning and zoning. Those need to be separate departments. We already have Lansing Economic Development Corporation. Do we really need also it to be in the planning department? Someone says lead is a problem, lead houses. I did actually hear from someone from the Economic and Planning Department saying that they did get a lead abatement grant for this coming year.
Oh,
so
nice.
the city does have some more money to work on that. So that's something. And somebody also said, thank you for turning some of the one-way streets downtown into two-way streets. Let's do this on Cedar and Larch. And
Yes.
my thing would be, let's do that on one of Cedar and Larch and turn the other one into a greenway.
Ooh.
Because I feel like I've lived in other places that do have like a real corridor, real dedicated pedestrian corridor.
Yeah.
And that can be a huge asset.
Yeah, we don't have, I mean, gosh, and you cycle a fair bit around this city, so you can speak to how safe or unsafe our different streets feel.
Sure.
I love cycling exclusively on the river trail.
And I think for a lot of people, that's where they feel safe. Because it takes a real level. It takes a level of confidence up to be in the roads.
Yeah, I
And that's
think,
not a dig. It's just like it is scary.
Yeah, I don't trust other drivers enough.
There's a lot of speeding.
Yeah, I want a lot of metal around me if I'm going to be in these streets.
Yeah. Yep. So those were the comments. So a few more just little things that had little issues at the meeting. So we have Michael Lynn Jr. appointed to the Board of Fire Commissioners. And he, again, is of the Lansing Empowerment Network, The Village, and America 20 to Life. And he gives a little speech about his history with the fire department and how he's pushing for change. And he's excited to be in this role. He's got the energy. He's going to bring the feet to the fire.
Yes.
So it's doing it. We had a presentation from Lansing Economic Development Corporation, Chris Klein, and landlord and property developer Lior Ron. And this developer has 200 properties, he says, in Lansing. He's been doing this since 2008. He's a landlord, and he's looking at 418 Baker to have an obsolete property rehabilitation, set up a zone for this specific property. So they're making it an obsolete zone. Just this parcel, it's been determined to be functionally obsolete already by an assessor, hoping to, quote, reduce the tax burden. So they're looking for a tax break for this development project. That's going to be real estate office on the first floor with 1 unit and then 2 units upstairs. So Councilmember Cost reminds us that there was a similar Oprah for a neighboring property earlier in the year, and that building just blew over in a storm.
Yeah.
Is that going to happen again?
Supposedly it was assessed and it was sound.
Yes, but not great.
I know it feels like kind of a dance where it's like it's not good enough to just stand on its own merits, and yet it's strong enough to not fall over in a stiff breeze,
exactly.
Which I think is the language that Councilman Cost used.
So they need to get this pushed through before August because apparently the state is sunsetting the Oprah process. So that's going away.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what Chris Klein said. So they approved that. And Hussein and Spatafor talk about their constituent contact meetings for the 3rd and 4th wards. There are 7 community announcements, of which you gave yours.
Yeah. The Reotown Commercial Association 25th annual meeting will take place on April 21st from 5:30 till 8 p.m. at the Reotown Clubhouse just south of the railroad tracks in Reotown.
Yes. And I'll put a link to it in the show notes.
Perfect.
So that people can easily click it, and get their ticket. Do you need a ticket? Or
no.
Free?
No, it's a free event. We
Love
just
it.
want to get the community together. It'll be upstairs in the Reotown Clubhouse event space.
Awesome.
Kind of taking the opportunity to look back over 25 years, but then more importantly, looking forward, because as it's been announced in, I think Lansing State Journal's written about it. I think the MSU paper has written about it. But Reotown as a corridor has been awarded a state grant to the tune of like $4.8 million. And then the city of Lansing is adding another $1 million, is my understanding.
Oh, wow.
So over $5 million are coming down the pipeline to do infrastructure and beautification for Reotown. And so we're using the meeting as an opportunity to kind of get folks together so that there's kind of a nice groundswell of like who's interested in learning more, who wants to be involved. And so it's getting people together in a room to celebrate and also to just kind of connect so that as we move into this next chapter of the neighborhood, we know who our players are.
Yeah. And
so
you can be a part of that.
Absolutely.
Listener.
So if you are a Lansing resident, if you love Reotown, if you're passionate about small town business, if you think that cool, weird neighborhoods are fun places to be, have we got a place for you?
There were noise permits granted for pump station work and road work for Saturdays, so they're working all Saturday, in addition to normal business days. There's some lawn care that the city is subcontracting for a West Side community, so they're like continuing to do that. I don't know. That's like a weird whatever.
Yeah.
The shopping district gets a 3% tax increase for the businesses within it who couldn't weasel their way out of it. And that's not, Reotown's not in the...
No, we're not a principal shopping district.
Any plans to develop something like that?
So in order to kind of pull off something like that, in my understanding, which is limited, so you have to have the property owners kind of agree to it.
Sure.
My understanding is that property owners kind of sign off because it comes out of their taxes, and then those taxes help to fund the organizations that then do the like commercial boosting. So the Old Town Commercial Association and Downtown Lansing Inc. are both funded by taxes. They can then turn around and have events or do cleanups or beautification. All of that will come out of these pots of money that are gathered as a result of tax overlay. Reotown is something like 20% owner-occupied properties, and so...
Not enough density, maybe?
No, it's not even a density thing. It's the fact that the businesses... So a lot of our favorite businesses that are in Reotown are renters. So, I mean, just going down the list, I know Dead Time Stories rents. I know that Clean Refillery rents. I know that Jean rents. On the other side, Vintage Junkies, Blue Owl, Thriftique, the barbershop, those are all renters. And so those are business owners, and they run these wonderful businesses, but they don't own the buildings in which their businesses are housed.
Yeah.
And so they don't get to make tax decisions.
Interesting. Okay.
Someone else does.
Yeah.
And so it's convincing that person or entity. I think several of those are actually owned by LLCs, which is then conglomerations of ownership, which further complicates things.
Where are the feet?
Yes. Find the feet. Build the fire. And so that can be, and so the decision is in the hands of, and I know that it's been brought to the table historically. One of the reasons why it hasn't kind of come back up is that we don't have the owner occupied density. That I think places like Old Town has a lot of like, I think especially originally, a lot of the buildings were owned by people who were very invested in that neighborhood and like wanted to see revitalization and so sought out those kinds of opportunities.
Yeah.
And then downtown is unique because it is a downtown district. And so even though I think that they also have a number of renters, there is a little bit more kind of
interest.
Yeah, they kind of have a different animal down there. And so, so there's a lot more to it. And I know, so Reotown is funded purely by membership donation.
Wow.
And so it operates at a far lower. I mean, we actually don't have any paid staff whatsoever. It's all fully volunteer.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that's a lot of work.
It is. But I mean, it is a fun little neighborhood.
Yeah,
So.
definitely is. So just a couple more things. So a special land use permit for a church on South Cedar was approved, and Councilmember Hussein reminded folks about liquor store ordinance changes that they're working on, and these do go through. So it's defining what a liquor store is. That's 50% of the sales or more are from like liquor or beer, wine, or I think they grouped in cigarettes along with that.
Yeah.
And then the closest the properties can be to one another are 2,500 feet. So I'm guessing that's not going to be like retroactive, but going forward, you can't put another, quote, liquor store right next to one that's already there.
Right.
And Hussein says that the state rep, Sam Singh, and State Senator Sarah Anthony are working hard on something like this at the state level as well, but they wanted to get a local one. And then changes to rental property certification with the placards of the white, yellow, red, and black, and waiving of some red tag fees should progress be shown. Those changes that had been talked about in previous meetings are now voted through. So those are going into effect. So that was the meeting. Any recap thoughts from you on just like the meeting in general, or anything else that stood out to you? Or?
I feel like City Council took a beating. Like, one of my takeaways was just, it must be tough to sit up there and listen to people be mad at you.
Yeah.
And so I did. I did kind of feel for them a little bit. I mean, they made that bed, but it is hard. It is hard to, I mean, and they got some verbal flogging last night. There were some very unhappy folks.
Yeah.
The community was engaged.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huge podcast announcement. Ready?
Yes.
And Reotown announcement.
Ooh.
There will be a live variety show at the Robin Theater. A discussion of citizenship with 3 super citizen panelists: Paul Anderson, Delisa Fontaine, and William Lawrence.
Oh, nice.
And me.
Holding it all together.
So I am so excited for these 3. I just love all of them, and I think they've got really great things to say about Lansing, and I think
so cool.
they're like super communicators. So I'm just like really excited to get these 3 up there and talking. It's going to be a fun time. Robin Theater, June 2nd. Tuesday from 6 to 8 p.m. Tickets are being sold through the Robin Theater. Thank you to Dylan Rogers.
Yes.
$21, and you can be a part of it.
Oh, my goodness. That's awesome.
I want to say also to check out the Patreon for the podcast. I have bingo for each meeting, as well as issue maps of the locations discussed. I want to thank my new Patreon members since the last meeting, Phil and Connor. Another way you can support the show is by telling your friends. Please tell your friends about this show, or writing a review or leaving a comment wherever a podcast can be found. The next meeting will be in 2 weeks on April 20th. Our guest will be Michael McKissick of the Mikey 23 Foundation. Looking forward to talking to him. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
You're so welcome.
Thank you to the Public Media Center for letting us record with you. And thank you all for listening. Podcast. Woo! Lansing. Woo!